And I remember as I was hiding in my crush's closet, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing her walk into her room, and I was freaking out, sitting there in the closet, trying not to make a single sound. And at that moment, I realized I was trapped in my own crush's closet. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but embarrassing story. So this story all takes place back when I was in middle school, and I was in grade 7. Now, grade 7 for me was actually pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie, like, I was a really basic kid, and honestly, I was a helpless romantic. I remember all throughout my middle school years, actually, funny enough, I only had one girl that I had a major crush on. And it was pretty well known throughout the guys in my school that I had a crush on this girl. But for her, I guess she was pretty oblivious. But I remember one day when I entered inside my school, I was sitting down writing in my journal as I was heading to class. If you guys don't know, back when I was in middle school, I had a journal that I basically wrote everything in. And yes, it was a journal, not a diary. I know how many people can get that confused, so trust me on this, it was just a journal. And basically with this journal, I remember as I was writing down in it, my buddy ends up walking up to me saying, "Yo, Bubba, what are you writing?" "Oh, nothing, don't worry about it." When in reality, I was actually writing about my crush. And I remember this wasn't the first time I wrote about my crush in my journal, and my buddy actually knows that I had a journal, and he always would make fun of me about writing in it, because let's be real here, he would always call it a diary. Anyways, I remember as he was asking me questions about the journal, he ended up grabbing it out of my hand, and he ended up saying, "Bubba, what? Are you writing about your crush again?" "Dude, give it back," is what I told him, and he ended up giving it back to me. I remember he kept telling me how I should just tell her the truth and just tell her that I like this girl, but honestly, I had no confidence whatsoever back when I was in grade 7 to actually go do that. And when we entered inside the classroom, we ended up all sitting down, and that's when class started. I remember even seeing my crush walk into the classroom when class started, and honestly, I couldn't get my eyes off her. If anything, like I said earlier, I was a helpless romantic, so every time I saw her, it was the only thing I could think about. That probably makes sense why my grades weren't so good, but it is what it is. Anyways, when class was about to end, I remember I quickly had to go to the bathroom, so I got up and left, and as I left, I remember when I got back from going to the bathroom, I ended up just packing my things and going home. And when I got home, I noticed the one thing that wasn't in my bag, and this thing was the most important thing in my life at the time, and that was my journal. For some reason, it wasn't there, and the last place I remember putting it was in my desk at school. So in my mind, I thought, okay, you know, it probably is at school. I can just go tomorrow, pick it up, and act like nothing happened. And I remember part of me, for some reason, just had a bad gut feeling. Like, you know that feeling when you get butterflies in your stomach that something bad's about to happen? Well, I had that feeling, but I tried my best to ignore it. And the next day, when I went to school early to go to my desk, I realized that my journal wasn't there. I was super confused on why, and I remember looking all over my desk and even taking everything out of my desk to see if I could find it, but it wasn't there. At that moment, I started to panic because I started thinking about if someone took my journal and they have access to all my crazy thoughts and all my secrets in life almost. So as I was panicking inside the classroom, class ended up starting and the bell rang, and everyone started to come into the classroom, seeing me totally empty out my desk and making a giant mess. It got to the point where my friend that, you know, I hung out with yesterday, the day before, he ended up walking up to me saying, "Bubba, why are you making a mess, bro? What happened?" "Dude, I can't find it." "Find what?" "My journal, bro. Like, I can't find it anywhere." "Wait, what? You didn't get it back?" "What do you mean get it back?" And that's when I realized my friend ended up telling me that he put my journal inside my crush's backpack, so it would be like a way for me to confess my feelings to her. I remember at that moment, I started to panic. I started to freak out, and I even almost ended up yelling at him. But obviously, before I did that, though, my crush ended up walking in, and I knew I had to figure out where my crush put my journal. I ended up asking my friend as well where he put my journal. He said he put it in her backpack, so I didn't think too much of it. And that whole day, I remember I was so nervous and freaking out inside about my journal being with my crush that I had no confidence whatsoever to go up to my crush and even ask her about it. For some reason, ever since I was a kid, and even now, I always had like a nervousness of like walking up to people and asking them for things. So I remember I always like kind of like held back, and even at lunchtime when I was about to walk up to her, I got super nervous because, well, she was my crush and I had no way to walk up to her. Anyways, one thing led to another, and the school day finally ended. And me, I just knew inside that I was worried because, well, since I didn't walk up to her, she was gonna go home and I wasn't gonna have my journal. So I remember I made up a plan to basically follow my crush after school and follow her home, which sounds really creepy, but to be honest, I was a kid back then, so I didn't really have that mindset, I guess, that it would be weird to do that. But I remember I ended up following her home, and when I saw and figured out where she lived, I ended up hiding and waiting until she got inside. And at that moment, I knew that I had to break into my crush's house and basically grab my journal. If you guys are wondering why I just didn't wait the next day at school, well, it was a Friday, so there was no possible way that school was going to be on the weekend, and there was no possible way for me to actually talk to her since I was so nervous. So I remember as time ended up going by, I waited like extra 20 minutes outside her place, and that's when I decided to break into her house. If you guys are wondering how I broke in, well, I ended up looking around the house and ended up figuring out which one was her window, and I ended up opening her window. For some reason, the house back where she lived at was really easy to open the windows for, so I ended up opening the window and I snuck inside her bedroom. When I got inside, I was so scared. Like, you have no idea, it is not actually easy to break and enter into someone's place. And no, do not try it. This is a warning, okay? I was a dumb kid back then. Don't do what I do in these stories. But anyways, as I was in her room, I knew that I had to get my journal, so I ended up looking around. I started looking, you know, inside her cabinet to looking inside her closet. And when I opened her closet, I saw her backpack. And that's when I grabbed her backpack and opened it, and I finally found my journal. I guess my crush never opens her backpack because knowing that I was in there for almost 2 days is totally insane. But I ended up grabbing my journal, but right as I grab it out of her bag, I ended up hearing noises of someone entering her bedroom, and I thought it was my crush. So I ended up jumping inside my crush's closet, and I sat in there trying not to breathe. My crush ended up walking in and getting changed, and honestly, me sitting in her closet, I was totally terrified. And knowing that she was right in front of me really wasn't a good idea. Like, there was no way I was gonna just come out of her closet and see her inside her own place without her knowing that I was there in the first place. Like, I didn't want my crush to know I broke into her place, okay? Like, I really did not know what to do here. So me, as I was freaking out, panicking, sitting in her closet, I remember I sat and waited inside her closet until she would leave her bedroom so I can have the golden opportunity to leave her place. But for some reason, no matter what, my crush just would not leave her room. No joke, she went from sleeping on her bed to sitting on her desk doing homework and would just be on her laptop listening to music and watching One Direction videos. Yeah, I don't know. My crush did a lot of things that day that I never thought she would ever do. But honestly, as I was sitting in her closet, I'm not joking, I ended up getting really hungry and super tired, to the point where I was actually considering passing out in her closet and sleeping in there for the night. But luckily, I ended up hearing my crush's mom calling her name, and that was the one time she ended up leaving her room. And knowing that this was my only opportunity to leave her room, I ended up getting out of her closet, and I ended up opening the window as fast as I could and leaving. But right before I could close the window, as I was outside, my crush ended up walking into her room, and instead of closing it, I just sprinted away as fast as I could with my journal. I ended up running home, and I remember at the time when I got home, it was like, I want to say around 11:30 at night. And when I remember when I got home, my mom ends up looking at me super upset saying, "Bubba, where are you? Where'd you go?" Sorry, mom. I was hanging out with friends." "What do you mean, Bubba? You don't have friends." "Thanks, mom. Thanks." And I remember I ended up just going downstairs and writing in my journal this exact crazy story that happened to me. Honestly, to this day, I'm still surprised that my crush never ended up finding my journal. And the next day afterwards, trust me, I ended up yelling at my friend for a good hour at lunchtime just because of his crazy idea for confessing my love to my crush that way. Trapped somewhere between wanting to forget and wanting to hold on. David Jones. Okay, so today's story, honestly, if you guys saw from the title, is actually something really intense. And I won't lie to you, it is scary in these moments when things happen like this. Like, you know, getting kidnapped is nothing fun. Like, especially when it's someone that you know that's doing it, it just changes the whole entire thing. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane, intense story. So today's story is basically on how I got trapped in a girl's basement. Now, honestly, the way this all ended up happening was so out of the blue, and honestly, to this day, I still can't believe that ended up happening. Because at first, I won't lie to you, I would say I liked it, but then I ended up not liking it. I don't know, it just became a whole conundrum. Basically, the story starts off all the way back when I was in high school. Back when I was in high school, I was a major player. This was my grade 11 year, and I remember I would literally do anything every single day. Meaning I would go hang out with the boys, I would hang out with random girls that I would just do the devil's tango with, and honestly, almost literally do anything. If there was a moment where I could say yes to something, I would do it. Unless it's with a guy, because I'm not gay. But going on with the story, I remember one time I was hanging out in class, and I was just sitting doing my science homework in my science room. And basically, I was just doing the homework, doing the same old thing, and then a girl ended up walking up to me. Now, originally, I recognized this girl because this girl used to really always stare me down in my social studies class. But for her to be coming into my science class is really out of the blue. So I remember I looked at her and said, "Hey, like, what's going on?" She looked at me, and she looked at me like she wanted to almost kill me. It was actually kind of scary, but at the same time, kind of hot. I don't know why, but you know, it is what it is. And then she ended up saying to me, "Oh, like, I was just wondering if you like, maybe like you wanted to like, I don't know, like hang out today or something." Why? Is what I asked her afterwards. And then she said, "Oh, like, I don't know, like, I think you're cute or something. Just like, why don't you like come hang out?" In my mind, I found it really weird, but then afterwards, I don't know. Like I said earlier, I would say yes to almost anything. So I said, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll hang out. What you want to do?" She ended up sitting down right in front of me and said, "Oh, like, I got this like new projector like put in my basement to like watch movies and stuff, and like I thought it'd be cool to like watch a movie together." Now at this point, I'm like, sure, I'm down. And honestly, the movie that she suggested was literally Harry Potter. Now me, I wear circle glasses, so for her to say that she wanted to watch Harry Potter was really out of the blue, but she basically really wanted to watch it. And I said, sure, why not? Because I do love Harry Potter. Actually, I'm super excited for this new Hogwarts Legacy game coming out. Oh my goodness, dude. If you guys are playing that game, comment down below. below. But basically, I remember I ended up saying, sure, I'm down. And basically from there, she ended up leaving the classroom. But right as she left and I went back to looking at my paper, instantly, and I mean instantly, out of nowhere, a friend of mine just came in. He came into the room saying, yo, bro, why did that crazy chick come in here? What do you mean crazy? Is what I asked him. And he said, bro, did you not know? Like one time a guy went to her house and literally like he almost died. What do you mean almost died? Is what I asked him. And then he ended up saying, dude, like, I don't know what this girl does, but like, dude, just don't trust her, bro. And he ended up leaving. He literally ended up leaving out of nowhere. It was like one of the most scariest things ever. But honestly, as a dumb high schooler, I don't listen to really anyone but myself. And I think most of us do this. So I was like, okay, whatever. And ended up going that same day. I remember I ended up getting inside my blue Toyota Celica, aka my blue car that I loved back when I was in high school, and got inside it, drove straight to her place. And when I got there, she was already sitting in front of her doorstep. It was super freaky. And honestly, to this day, I have no idea why she did this, but it's whatever. Going on from there, I remember I decided to go straight to her place, and I walked inside, and basically from there, she ended up looking at me saying, oh, yeah, no one's home because like my family's gone for the weekend. So like, yeah, we can just like chill here for a bit if you want. I ended up saying sure. And you know, we ended up, you know, checking out her place. She had actually a pretty big house, but it was really old looking. Like, you know, those really big old houses that they had back then? Like, it was cool, but it's freaky looking. It's one of those houses. And basically, I remember we ended up walking around the house, and then instantly she ended up taking me downstairs to the basement, and I saw it. She had a whole movie theater room set up, aka it was literally just a couch with a coffee table beside it, which was bolted to the ground, scary enough, and basically a projector hitting the screen. From there, I remember me and her, we went upstairs, made some popcorn, and right as we were making popcorn, I remember she looked at me saying, oh, like, I'm just wondering, like, did you eat before coming here? I ended up telling her no, and then right at that moment, she ended up ordering a pizza, which, I mean, that was very nice of her. Honestly, part of me started to think that she was almost obsessed with me, though, because whatever I wanted, she just gave me. Like, no joke, I could literally say, yo, give me the devil's tango, and she would give it, like, instantly. But I didn't, though. Obviously, I took my time with it, and obviously, me and her, we went downstairs, we waited for the pizza to arrive, we got pizza, we got popcorn, and we started playing the movie. We started sitting on the couch, and me and her, we started, like, basically, like, you know, cuddling, and we started watching Harry Potter. We were watching Harry Potter, the first one, and honestly, I love it. It was super cool because, like, you know, I literally got circle glasses the same as him, and also me and him had, like, very similar haircut. So, like, you know, most people would call me Harry Potter, and that's how I really got into the Harry Potter movies. And that's one thing she always mentioned when we were watching the movie, when we were sitting beside each other. She would always say, oh, like, you look so much like him. Thanks. Which was kind of weird because I was in grade 11, and in the movie, the kid's like, what, 12? I have no idea. It was super weird, but going on from then, I remember as we were cuddling, my hand was kind of like on the side of the couch near the coffee table, and out of nowhere, and I mean, like, literally, in the most darkest part of the movie, this girl decides to jump on top of me, make out with me, and as she's making out with me, my hand's like kind of like off to the side near the coffee table, and no joke, I don't know where these came from, but she ended up handcuffing me to the literal bolted down coffee table. I remember she ended up basically handcuffing me from there, and I remember I looked to the side, and I'm like, damn, that's kind of kinky. But then I thought, wait a second, why am I getting handcuffed? Because I never like to be, you know, the one on the non-controlling side, if that makes any sense. But after this girl handcuffs me, no joke, for some reason, she started making out with me even more and more, and got to the point where she went down and did the devil's blow. It was super awkward, and I remember I was like, okay, this is getting really weird. So I remember I kind of like told her to stop, and she ended up stopping, saying, wait, what's wrong? And I said, yo, like, can you unhandcuff me? Like, I don't really like this anymore. And she's like, you don't like it anymore? Are you serious? And she ended up slapping me across the face. She literally slapped me. Like, what? It was super weird. And I remember at that moment, I'm like, okay, this is not gonna cut it. Like, no, you can't do this. So I remember out of rage, I ended up trying to, like, you know, break the coffee table, but I couldn't. No matter what I do, this thing was like made out of metal for some reason. So I remember I looked at her and I'm like, okay, listen, seriously, it's not funny. You know, take off the handcuff. And at that moment, I remember she got the remote, she paused the movie and looked at me and said, who do you think you are? Hi, my name's Bubba, is what I told her. And she's like, no, seriously? You think you can literally do the devil's tango with every girl in the school but me? Okay, you know what? Until we do it, you're not leaving. And then right at that moment, she ended up leaving the basement and leaving me down there stuck with my pants down, just sitting in her basement. It wasn't until half an hour later where she came down with a cup of water saying, okay, you ready for another round? I told her no. My eggplant's not gonna get bricked up if you're locking me in your own basement. This is like a kidnapping, is what I told her. And then she said, oh yeah, well, like I said, you're not leaving. At that moment, I was panicking. I was like, okay, I gotta do something. So I remember I ended up actually reaching for my phone, and right as I was reaching for it, she literally swooped in, pushed me on the ground, and literally took my phone and walked away with it. I didn't have my phone. I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, I gotta figure out what to do, because I was like panicking. And then right at that moment, the girl ended up leaving again. She left for like almost almost 2 hours, but in those 2 hours, I was thinking of a plan to get out of there. So I remember basically, I ended up basically, you know, sitting there thinking and thinking until I realized what I could do. I remember that she ended up putting the movie on Xbox, and Xbox has Xbox Live. So basically on Xbox Live, you can like kind of like call people, aka go to party chats and stuff. So I remember I ended up going on her Xbox, getting the remote, and then basically I was going to go on my account and I texted one of my friends, yo, help me, I'm stuck at this girl's house. And then I texted the friend, obviously, that, you know, warned me about the chick, obviously, at first, because, you know, he was the only one that would actually understand if I wrote that as fast as I could. So right as I wrote that, I sent it to him, and instantly, I'm not even joking, I want to say 10 minutes later, cops ended up knocking on her door. But I was in the basement. I was stuck down there. There's nothing I could have done. But all I hear is that this girl ended up answering the door saying, oh yeah, nothing's going on. What's the problem, officer? All nervous like. And at that moment, the cops knew that something was off. So they ended up going around the house, searching all the upstairs floor, but they didn't search the basement. At that moment, I had to do something. So I literally yelled saying, help me, I'm stuck down here. And right at that moment, the cops ended up busting the door down that I was stuck in and basically ended up unlocking me. And the girl actually ended up getting arrested because she did just turn 18, even though we were in grade 11. I don't know, it was super weird. All I'm gonna say is that getting locked in a girl's basement is not fun, nor is kidnapping fun, nor is it legal. Now, when you have a crush on someone, don't tell anyone you know. Seriously, a crush is meant to be kept secret, because let's say you tell one of the guys, they're gonna end up going for it if they're not loyal to you, and let's just say they're gonna go steal your girl, and then more drama is gonna happen to the point where you're trapped in an Airbnb with your supposed crush that ends up actually doing something else with something else. And let me just explain the story because it gets really intense and really insane. But yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but super embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place, funny enough, back in my grade 9 year. Now, in grade 9, there was a girl that I kind of had a crush on. By kind of, I mean, I liked her, but I didn't know much about her. But the way she looked at me and the way I looked at her, I don't know. In some way, it made me feel like we had some sort of connection. And I remember I liked this girl a lot, but I didn't really know if she actually liked me, to be honest, at this time. And it got really weird because every time we would like cross by in the hallway, we end up staring at each other. And for example, when we would sit in class, we end up staring at each other. And no, it wouldn't be like little glances. It would be like full on like staring contests, to the point where it was pretty obvious there was something between us that we didn't really know what was going on. But me being in grade 9 at this time, I wasn't really a player. I was really shy at the time, and I was really nervous to go up to girls and kind of just play the game, I guess you would say. I didn't gain that confidence till like grade 10 or like halfway through my grade 9 year. So knowing this, I remember basically was a helpless romantic in love, and I did the one thing that most guys end up doing when they end up liking someone, and that is go up to their friends and tell them. I remember around lunchtime, me and my homies, we all ended up sitting in a table and we all ended up eating lunch together. And I ended up looking at one of my buddies, and this guy was like a lady slayer, I guess, in a way. I don't know. At the time, he had more girlfriends than I ever did. And I looked at him and I told him, yo, bro, I'm just curious, like, what's the best way to like approach a girl? What do you mean, Bubba? Like, are you into someone? Like, are you like, you know, thinking about someone? Yeah, I am. And like, I don't know how to like approach her, if that makes any sense. I mean, like, who's the girl? It depends on what girl it is. I remember I ended up telling him like who the girl was and like, you know, why I feel like she was interested in me. And that's when he said, oh, well, I mean, like, bro, I could just be a W wingman and just go ask her for you. Seriously, you would do that? Yeah, bro. Like, if anything, I could probably help you, like, you know, get her number or something. Okay, then, yeah, sure. Okay. Wait, how do we do this? Here, just follow me. Me and my homie, we ended up standing up and leaving the rest of our friends, and we ended up going down the hallway where her locker was. And we saw her standing near her locker and basically talking with like some of her girlfriends that were there. And he looks at me and he's like, you sure you want me to do this? Yeah, dude, like, she's great. Okay, here, just stay here. I got this. He ends up walking up with confidence, and I started studying his moves on how he walks up to girls, funny enough. But he walks up there and he looks at her and they start talking. Now, I was not close enough to hear what was going on, but I had full faith in my buddy at the time. He's talking with this girl, and one thing led to another. He ends up pulling out his phone, and that's it. I don't really know what happened next, but he walks back to me and he's like, bro, just give it some time. I think she'll be interested in you. So did you get me her number? Oh, nah, she's not like interested like that yet, bro. But down the line, maybe she will be in the future. Okay. That's a little weird. Wait, so what happened? What'd you tell her? Oh, just don't worry about it. Let's just say it didn't work out, but it's okay, man. I know many other girls you can go hit on. At that moment, my heart sank because like I, had full faith in my buddy, and I was like, okay, well, I guess she wasn't interested in me. And then I realized 2 weeks later, later, something insane happened where my buddy ended up actually, funny enough, started dating my crush. But other than my heart sinking, I realized that she was officially off the list and that, you know, since she's dating my buddy now, there was no possible chance I could get with her. When deep down in the back of my mind and probably deep down in my heart that sank earlier, I knew that I still liked her. From there, years went on and my buddy was still dating this girl and they were dating till grade 12, our final year of high school. They were together for a very long time and I remember from this point, I'm like, you know, damn, like they're gonna be high school sweethearts. Things are perfect. And to be fair, like even though it was kind of rude what he did, he was still part of the boys and he was still, you know, part of our close friend group that we had back in high school. And, you know, we were all really close friends. And one thing I started to realize over the years of the relationship was that they got into a lot of different arguments about, you know, liking about girls' Instagram photos to basically talking to other girls, from here talking to other guys. It was a big mess to the point where a lot of their drama really scoured around the school and most people knew about it. But aside from that, knowing that it was our grade 12 year though, we wanted to make sure that our grade 12 year was still fun without the whole entire drama thing going on. One day, me and my homies in my grade 12 year, we all ended up sitting together at lunchtime. We all sat down next to each other. Knowing that years went by and how fast high school went through with the years, I'm not gonna lie, we were all pretty different people. Like I went from being a shy, quiet grade 9 kid to being a massive player in grade 12, graduating, not really knowing what he wanted to do in the future. And knowing that finals were coming up and everything, we all agreed to make a plan that after finals, all of us would go hang out and go on a little vacation together. What vacation? Well, we ended up going to a hot springs that was like basically like, you know, a vacation spot in our home city. And we all decided to book an Airbnb together and basically go enjoy it. Now, at the time when we were all sitting together at lunch, we made a very specific rule that it'd be only guys in that B&B, okay? All of us would be a guy's trip, it'd be a guy's vacation, and that's it. Simple as that. But let's just say after finals passed by, we ended up getting a message in the group chat from the guy that ended up taking my crush originally back in grade 9. And he says, "Yo, guys, I don't think I can go on the trip. Is it cool if I get my money back for the B&B? Why? Why can't you go? My girl said that unless she's going, I'm not allowed to go. We're kind of like in a tricky situation." Ugh, you gotta be kidding me again, is what one of my other buddies said. And it got really weird and awkward. And I'm not gonna lie, it got to the point where all of us guys just ended up agreeing that she could come as long as she wasn't in the way. I remember my homie was super happy about this and he told his girl and he ended up being able to come for the vacation that we planned. And let's just say on the day of the vacation, things got really weird. Because I remember we all ended up basically meeting up. And I want to say this, my buddy back in grade 9 that ended up taking the girl that I liked, compared to now in our grade 12 year, we were two very different people. Like he went from being, you know, a rising star that many people liked in grade 9 to being a bum in grade 12. And for me, well, I was kind of the opposite. I went from being a really shy, quiet kid to being, well, a cool guy with a car that pulled a lot of girls. So obviously things kind of, I guess you could say, flipped for me and him. And when it came to the day of the vacation, I remember I ended up having the job to pick up everybody with my car since I had a car at the time. I remember I drove over to everyone's houses, and when I drove over to my buddy's place that had the girlfriend, two of my buddies were already sitting in the back, and my buddy comes up and says, "Yo, Bubba, can you open the trunk?" I ended up opening the trunk and obviously his girl came out and said, "I am not sitting in the back. You have to sit in the back with your friends." When she said this, I remember my buddy was like, "Oh, babe, come on. It's just my homies. Like, it's not that big of a deal." "No, babe, I'm going to sit in the front with Bubba, okay? It's not my fault you can't drive." Yeah, let's just say the tension was really built up there. But let's just say she ended up sitting in the front with me and we ended up going on the way driving. As we're driving, one thing I started to realize was the same thing that happened back in grade 9, where basically me and her kept looking at each other very weirdly. To the point where people in the back seat started to realize, being like, "Yo, Bubba, you good? You can't keep your eyes on the road?" "Huh? Oh, yeah, I am. Sorry, just, you know, long day." "Has it really been a long day, Bubba? Is everything okay?" When she said this, I remember it felt super weird seeing that she was concerned about me. And honestly, like, I don't know. I will say this, things got really, really awkward. Over time, like, I didn't really know what to think or what to say. And to be honest, since she was dating my buddy, it was my main goal not to really talk to her or basically, you know, conversate with her at all, because she wasn't even supposed to be part of this vacation in the first place. And also, I want to be a W mans and not steal his girl. At least at the time, that's kind of what I thought, even though she turned me down. When we finally got to the vacation spot, I remember all of us guys, we ended up going into the B&B and unloading our bags. Now, the thing about this B&B was that there was enough rooms for all of us, right? But at the same time, for some reason, the locks on the B&B were really weird because there was a specific code that would change like every hour. And apparently the B&B owner had to message us what the code was. And I remember it was like kind of weird, but at the same time, it was like, okay, I mean, like, you know, it's really safe at least is what we thought. But as time went on, I remember it got really, really weird because after, you know, us having a good day on vacation throughout the entire single day. I kept realizing that me and this girl, we kept having these random eye contact moments where it felt like it was back in grade 9. At this moment, I don't know why, but those old feelings that I had in my stomach started to come back, and it got really awkward to the point where I didn't really know what to say to her. To be honest, every time she would try to conversate with me or try to talk to me, I would try to refuse and ignore it and just hang out with the guys, because obviously she was dating my homie at the time. No way I was gonna speak to her. But then towards late at night on the first night of the B&B, I remember things got really intense because we all started basically sitting down and, you know, playing board games and basically started talking to each other and watching the game on TV. And one thing led to another. For some reason, in our homie's bedroom with his girlfriend, a loud argument started happening. It was super weird, and I'm like, yo, like, what's that argument going on up there? And we started to hear the argument about apparently she liked someone else, but he was like, you know, not letting her go. And it was like this whole like weird like situation. To be honest, I didn't really hear much about it, nor can I really talk about it, because to be honest, it's old news. But then one thing led to another. I ended up seeing this guy coming down the stairs and just leaving the B&B. He just straight up leaves and slams the door. Everyone gets up, you know, starts thinking, yo, like, should we go after him and stuff? And then since there was like 3 other dudes, including me, the other 2 were like, okay, well, you know what? You come with me. We're gonna go see what's going on with him. Okay, what should I do? And when I said, what should I do? Right away, we end up hearing his girlfriend come downstairs being like, Bubba, can you stay here? I'm not feeling well. At this moment, I remember my other 2 homies just look at me and they're like, okay, Bubba, you're staying here. And they just left. And me, I was stuck with this girl. And when they left, I remember it was like super late at night. Obviously, at this time I was worried, but then I ended up sitting on the couch, you know, beside her, and I realized she started crying. I ended up asking her like, yo, is everything all right? Is everything okay? But she just kept saying how, like, you know, times have changed and how, you know, in the beginning of the relationship, he was a good guy, and then he ended up becoming a jerk over time. And I don't really know. It was really random stuff that I really didn't need to know. By the way, quick advice for anyone that's in a relationship: whatever happens between you guys stays between you guys. It should not be spread out amongst any friends or family or anything like that. Unless it's like immediate danger, then for sure you should. But back to what I was saying with the storyline. After like an hour of me trying to make sure she was okay, she ends up basically looking at me and saying, Baba, I don't understand. Back in grade 9, like, I always thought you liked me, but you never walked up to me. Was there like something wrong with me? What? No, I just, you know, I was shy back then. I didn't really know what I was doing. Wait, so you did like me? Kinda? I mean, like, you know, it's such a long time ago. I don't really remember, is what I told her. But then she ended up looking at me again, and we ended up locking eyes. And that's when she started to lean closer, and funny enough, she ended up kissing me. At that moment, though, I felt super weirded out. I'm like, yo, this should not be happening. So I ended up pushing her off, and I'm like, yo, you're dating my homie. Like, this is not right. What are you doing? She ends up crying, being like, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. And, you know, she was panicking. But then after like 10 minutes later, we ended up keeping our distance between each other, and then we ended up hearing a knock on the door from the B&B. Now, when the door was knocked, I remember I ended up going and trying to open the door, but I couldn't open it because, like I said earlier, there was like a specific code every hour you had to get to open the B&B. And I remember I'm like, yo, boys, is that you? Yeah, Bubba, we're outside. Open the door. I can't open the door. Why can't you? Because I don't have the code. I think I should get the code. Here, let me check. And realizing that the Airbnb owner didn't send us an update code on what the code is actually for the door anymore. So they were locked out. And I'm like, yo, if they're locked out, that means I'm locked in with this guy's girlfriend. So it was super awkward. And I remember I ended up going back in there, and I'm like, yo, we're trapped in here, by the way. And when I mentioned to her that we were trapped, she stood up and she looks at me instantly in the eyes and she said, wait, really? It's just me and you? Yeah. And then that's when she walks up to me and she grabs me by the shirt and says, Bubba, you cannot mention anything about this. And we ended up going up to my bedroom that I had at the B&B, and we ended up doing the devil's tango. At this moment, I didn't really know what to think, because I'm not gonna lie, this made me really unattracted to her, but at the same time kind of grossed out that she was a cheater. I don't know, I guess all my feelings from back then in grade 9 definitely disappeared at this time, and knowing that we just did the devil's tango definitely made things a lot weirder. From there, I remember like 4 hours went by, and finally the Airbnb guy answered, and I ended up hearing the door unlock because you could hear like this weird like zzz unlocking sound, and I start panicking, and I look at, you know, the girl that used to be my crush, and I'm like, yo, put on your clothes quick. So she puts on her clothes and she runs straight to the room where, you know, her boyfriend was supposed to be in. As for me, well, I was laying in bed, and then afterwards my homies all come upstairs and walk into my room, and they're like, yo, Bubba, what are you doing? Huh? What? I'm just laying in bed. What's going on? Pretending that I was asleep. They look at me and they're like, yo, where's my girlfriend? I think she's in your room, bro. Oh, okay, sorry, you can go back to bed now. They all end up leaving my room, and me, I end up going to bed that night knowing what I did. And honestly, I will say this, I insanely regret it, but I guess that's what happens when you're trapped with your old crush in the B&B. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to click on one of the videos on screen right now and follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.